It's time for the telecast, brought to you by
the Geekcast Radio Network. And here is your host for the show, Optimus Solo.
That's right, I am your host, Optimus Solo, and I'd like to say hello and welcome to the second of our supplemental episodes here on the telecast. We're numbering this one 10.5, and obviously the telecast is brought to you by the Geekcast Radio Network. Today with me to do the second supplemental episode is none other than TFG1. Mike, hello, sir.
Hello.
And today, the two of us are going to be talking about, first of all, if you haven't listened to the first supplemental episodes are basically a relaxed look at all of the different shows that are covered in Season 1, and even maybe some shows that we didn't get to cover but kind of fit that same genre, which, if you're not aware, is kids programming from the 80s and early 90s, just any of those non-cartoon kids programming that we grew up on. The first supplemental episode was which characters you'd like as a friend, or which characters you'd choose to have as your best friend. We talked about, things like Zach Morris or, Clarissa from Clarissa Explains It All, just kind of a variety of different characters. And today, we're actually going to be talking about which adult figures from these shows would it depends on how we interpret it. It could be which ones would you like as your parent, which ones would be the coolest parent, or which would be an adult figure that, you would want in your life as a role model, something like that. So it's kind of a loose idea, but we're going to run with it and see where it takes us. But before we get going, just what have you been up to, and give me some general thoughts on, without revealing any of your choices, how you went about making your list and what you kind of interpreted it as.
Well, the way I had and I told you this earlier on Skype off-air in the chat, that I was asking you how you wanted to do this, because the way I had originally thought what you meant was top 10 parental figures from Season 1 of Telecast, which obviously we haven't gotten to a lot of the episodes yet. We only just finished episode 10.
Right.
We're only 10 episodes into the 35-episode season, and I thought you meant just the actual parental type figures, as far as the darling parents, Pete and Pete's mom and dad, which I don't know why anyone would want a mom with a plate in her head. Stuff like that. So I didn't realize the scope that I could actually project out onto as far as this goes. And you had said basically anything that had appeared in any of the shows within Season 1, if they were a fairly good role model, or someone you would want to look up to or have as a parent.
Right.
So,
you come up with 10 pretty easy, or do you have to kind of rack your brain a little bit?
Once I finally got the gist of what you wanted,
yeah.
After because when I first started, like I said, I was thinking specific actual parental.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been a lot to choose from.
Shows.
There wouldn't have been a lot to choose from.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, how the hell am I going to get 10 things out of this? And it's like, holy crap.
Yeah, especially since we're just talking about live action stuff. We're not including cartoons, and we're not including shows that would have been in additional other parts of the telecast, like sitcoms and stuff like that. Which, when we get to the sitcoms, this is actually going to be one of the better ones, I think, because there's going to be a lot of actual parents to choose from, instead of just adult figures. But
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sorry, I have to call TFG1 Grimlock out in the Ustream chat. Dude, the telecast is live action television stuff. It's not cartoons. And why would the heck would you want Tommy's mom from Rugrats? Holy God.
He did say joke, or just kidding, so.
I know, just kidding, I know, but still.
No, I always want to interpret that as joke. And I know it stands for just kidding.
Oh, it's just
I know,
kidding.
but I always like in my mind say joke when I see that. I gotta fix that. She's a crazy redhead. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna get too distracted here. Well, the reason he thought it was probably Rugrats is because every time you Ustream, it's almost for Tooncast, so. Or for cartoons of some sort. No, I came up with, I thought it was going to be a little bit harder for me just thinking of it, but once I started going through, I had, like 13 or 14 just the first time I went through, and I had to cut a few of them, which wasn't too hard, but,
Why is it always when you make lists, you do a top one, like say you're going to do a top 10 or a top 100, you get like 10 or 12 more than what you actually need, and you have to go back and cut people off.
That's a good point. It's just the way I work. Like, I had said in our last record, I don't have a darn clue what it was, but that I had just made that top 10 female voice actors of the 90s list for...
that was Tooncast?
Yeah, for something.
No, ATT.
Yeah, all things Transformers. For Behind the Voice Actors, and I did that top 10 for the females of the 90s, and last couple of days I was trying to revamp my 90s male list, because there was a few that I thought, like I said with Tara Strong, that might fit better in the 2000s. So I decided to do... get everybody's name down for 90s and 2000s that I thought qualified, and then break it down in the top 10 for each decade. Yeah, I definitely had like 36 names to whittle down to 20. I don't know, it's just the way I work, I guess. But anything else we need to put a disclaimer on before we get into our top 10?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I mean, you know how this is going to work, and for everybody listening, we're just going to go back and forth, starting at the number 10 for our list, and we'll alternate all the way down to the 1, and we'll discuss things we think needing discussed, and we'll bypass other ones, or we'll just see how it goes. So why don't you get us started with your number 10?
Bill Nye.
Interesting choice. I almost had him on my list, actually.
It's more so not because of a parental figure type of thing. It's almost like he's that TV science teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, technically that's what he was on television, but I mean, it's almost like, like when I was in science class, they would always send us home to do homework or to, find out an experiment or whatever. And I would always end up watching Bill Nye.
Yeah.
And I think, actually, I could be mistaken. It might have been Beekman's World, but... Good Lord, who would want that guy as a
yeah, you don't want beef in it.
It was either Bill Nye or Beekman's World where I first learned about the colored soda bottles, the hourglass soda bottles. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Where you take two soda bottles.
Yeah.
And you put a clamp around.
Do the tornado?
You take them end on end. You put the liquid in. You put water in with food coloring inside of it. And then you clamp the two bottles together with some sort of hard plastic clamp, and then you can
do the tornado,
twist it, and make tornadoes and all that stuff.
That was always fun in school. Well, that's one of the good things that would be about if you had someone like a Bill Nye as a parental unit, because think about like if you're a youngster and you have someone over like for a sleepover or something, all the different like experiments he could do, and it'd be a fun time. So plus he came across as a guy that wasn't necessarily so nerdy that it was annoying. He was like a cool scientist, so I'm definitely cool with your choice for number 10. It's similar to someone that I'll talk about a little bit later. My number 10 is kind of iffy, and I don't think you're gonna know who he is, but it's Mr. Ernst from Hey Dude. He was the head of the ranch at Hey Dude, and the reason I'm saying it's kind of iffy because he was a little bit of like a moron. Like, he wasn't necessarily the brightest guy in the world. The reason I put him in there, though, is because, like, underneath it all, he really did care about all the people at the camp. I remember watching an episode where Ted from Hey Dude, is having some problems where he runs away from home, and he's trying to hide out at the camp and stuff like that. And Mr. Ernst just really has some, heart-to-heart talks with him, and tries to explain what's best for him, and just that caringness that he had for the campers. You're going to see on my list different people that are there for completely different qualities, and I guess if you could take them all and take each one of those qualities and put it into one person, it would be like the number one. But
right.
Yeah, he wouldn't be great as far as like he'd be annoying, and he would make you do like these stupid things to try to like, he always had these schemes about like getting rich or doing different stuff, and he wasn't very bright, but just for that caring factor, I thought he deserved my 10th spot.
Cool.
So how about your next one?
I'm not sure. You may remember this guy, but I'm not sure if you will or not, because this is one that I added because of our clarification of what to put on the list. Gordon, one of the adults from Sesame Street.
Gordon Robinson.
There you go. You actually know his last name.
I do know his last name.
Every time I saw him on Sesame Street, he was always trying to teach Snuffy or Big Bird or Oscar or Elmo or Grover. He's always trying to help them out and teach them something,
right?
And help them get through day to day.
Were you aware of how many different Gordons there were?
I only remember the one from the 80s.
Yeah, the bald one.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one I remember. He's the second one. There was actually the original one's name was Matt Robinson. The guy that you're talking about, which is also the one I remember, is named Roscoe Orman, and then he died in I think he died. I think he was the one that died like in 2002. Mm-hmm. And there's been at least, I don't know how many there's been now. If there's been 3 or 4, I mean, I think he's still a character on the show. But I think they're on like their 3rd or 4th different person. I'm pretty sure the one that we're remembering is no longer with us, but he was always one of my favorite human characters on Sesame Street. And you're right, he was always being that guy that they could go to get help. Which, it's always good when you have an adult that you feel, comfortable enough with going to your problems with. Excellent choice. My number 9, and you should know this one, and I guess this is maybe one of my weirdest ones on the list, and this is just for the cool, fun to hang out with factor. Not necessarily that they'd be the best parent in the world, but I'm going with Max from Saved by the Bell. That was his name, right? The guy that ran the Max? I don't know if that was his name or not.
Yeah. I think
we haven't got to that episode yet, so I'm not real studied up on it, even though I know Saved by the Bell like the back of my hand.
Yeah, I know most of the characters, but I don't. I believe you are correct.
The magician guy that ran, he ran the Max not for the entire run of the show, but the guy that ran the Max, he would do crazy little card tricks and magician tricks and whatnot, but he was that guy. So if I'm getting the name wrong, I'll correct it when we get to the Saved by the Bell episode. But
I'm looking it up right now. So
okay, but I mean,
keep talking about why you like Max.
Well, the main reason, like I said, he didn't have a chance to display too many like parental characteristics. But what he did do is he was always having these fun little tricks, kind of like the same reason why I think your choice for Bill Nye is good, because they can entertain you, and that's good in a parent at times. He also he would give them advice every once in a while when they would have a problem.
Correct, sir.
What was his name?
Max, played by magician comedian Ed Alonzo, is the owner of the Max, the favorite hangout of the gang. He acted as sort of a liaison between the adult and kid world.
So he is Max, and he ran the Max.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I should have just looked at our Ustream because Grimlock was telling us I was right. But, but yeah. So I mean, it was just that fun part. You could go to him and get a little bit of advice every once in a while, and basically he was that fun. He could entertain you and stuff. So it's not like I wouldn't necessarily want him as my parent, but to have some of his characteristics in a parent would be kind of cool. That's my number 9. I had to come up with something I didn't think anyone else would think of. So what about
my?
Go ahead.
Oh, number 8, right. I got confused there for a minute.
The Max burned down in Saved by the Bell, the new class. They actually had that. They actually had that as a storyline. You're not just like pulling our chain. That's terrible. Anyways, we'll have to talk about that in a future episode.
Yes.
Go ahead.
My number 8 is the Chief.
From Carmen Sandiego.
from Acme Detective Agencies. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
She was one of the ones I had on my list, and she got cut.
The chief was hilarious, just the way she interacted with, I believe the host name was Greg. I don't remember his last name.
It was Greg, you're right.
Yeah. Just the way she interacted, the way she gave the lessons of where Carmen was, and just her voice. Lynn Thigpen is just, she was an amazing, amazing actress. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2003.
I'm starting to think you don't have anyone on your list that's still alive. I'm just kidding. That's terrible. That's terrible. No, I'll tell you why she got cut. She got cut only because I loved her too. That was one of the best parts about that show. The only reason I cut her was because out of all the ones on my list, I was afraid she would be too strict on me and too hard on me, like almost too military-like. So, but I understand why you have her on your list. I'm not saying it's a bad choice. It was like the last ones I cut. Yeah. But I was just one part of me was like, she might not be very fun as a parent, but maybe she would be. I'm not sure.
See, I think of her because obviously she's a game show type of person.
Yeah.
I think of her more as a role model, like teacher type, kind of like Bill Nye in that sense, instead of an actual parental type figure. So she would probably fall into the category of role model, and just the way that she presented herself, the way her personality was on Carmen Sandiego.
Well, and she did look like, out of all of the people that we were exposed to, she looked like one of the ones that had maybe some of the best parenting skills. As far as being able to run a household, take charge, not take any crap, and raise good kids. I just don't know if I'd want to be one of them. My number 8, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm not sure if you remember this show at all or not, but one of the episodes coming up on the telecast, I think much later actually, it's one of the last episodes, is a TV show called The Elephant Show, also known as Sharon, Lois, and Bram's Elephant Show. In which there was 3 adult characters named Sharon, Lois, and Bram, and they provided entertainment by singing and doing all these little skits. And they were just really cool. I'm putting all 3 of them as my number 8 in a package deal. Just because they would be fun parents to have at a very young age. Because they were very musical. They would be people that would foster your creative and imagination skills. And small kids are entertained with music, and they were very good with that. So it just seemed like it would be fun to have them around in those early years, around the house singing songs and just having kind of fun. So I slid them in at number 8, kind of cheating.
Yeah, I have no idea who they are.
You'll have to.
I don't even really remember I remember when Steve sent me the art for Telecast for season 1, which you can go over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Geekcast Radio Network, and you look at our photos, and you'll see that in the Telecast album. But when Steve sent me the art for that, I'm like, what in the hell show is that?
I'll have to send you a YouTube link or something.
Yes.
Fundos. Yeah. Did we just make up a word?
Apparently so.
I'm trying to decide what it's going to mean, though. Maybe by the end of the episode, I'll have him definitely.
Any idea? I had no clue. I was originally supposed to say photos.
I like fundos, though.
Yeah.
Although it sounds like something you'd eat. What are we on, number 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I am going to cheat. I wouldn't do this as a best friend type of thing, because you guys already did best friend, but I made a note next to number 7 to be a kid again choice, and I put Pee Wee Herman.
Oh my God!
Now, hold on! Shut up!
I love it.
I don't want to see any typing in the Ustream. I don't want to hear anything from you, regardless of his later in life exploits. Pee Wee's Playhouse was one of the best children's program on back then.
I am not disagreeing that would be a cool parent in the fact that you would just have loads of fun in the way that he was in Pee Wee's Playhouse. Like, that was a fun environment. He was, crazy and entertaining. So I'm not disagreeing with you on that part. I just find it very ironic that we're coming up with our best parental units and we got Pee Wee Herman in there. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's funny.
Right. Yeah.
someone's gonna lay into us.
We're going to have so many comments on this episode post over at geekcastradio.com.
This is one for that one guy. This is one for Waltman XP to listen to or something.
Fuck that guy.
Pee Wee Herman, we want him to be our father.
Now, I need to clarify. I said to be a kid again, like to be, it wouldn't be a best friend type, but just like to bring out the inner child in me, it would be Pee Wee Herman.
It's almost like Big or something. That's the image that came into my head when you said be a kid again.
Pee Wee Herman and Tom Hanks. Oh my God, that's okay. Yeah, moving on. You're number 7.
All right, my number 7. I don't know. I'm not comfortable with this one either, but it's kind of like my Mr. Ernst, where the guy's kind of an idiot, but deep down he really cares. I put Mr. Belding at number 7.
God, that's funny.
I don't know. Like, I'm torn on this one too, because I know he's kind of annoying and he's kind of cheesy and he's kind of not the brightest guy in the world, but when it came right down to it, he would do anything for those kids. And, that's a huge characteristic in, we've had some people on our list because they'd be fun or entertaining or because, they'd be good role models or different factors. And for me, this one, it comes down to the same as Mr. Ernst. Deep down, I could really sense a heart in these two individuals, whereas some of the other ones didn't have a chance to display that emotional side. And for me, Mr. Belding comes in at number 7.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. He'll come up a little bit later on.
What's your number 6?
Oh,
that's not a good start.
This is probably the only crazy one.
Besides Pee Wee Herman, that one wasn't crazy.
No, that wasn't crazy. No.
Michael Jackson?
No, hell no. What?
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody that's with us.
I forget what the hell his name is, but Pete and Pete's dad.
Okay.
And for those who don't know, Pete and Pete's dad is the one episode. He's the guy in the episode, the camping episode, the dad that has to be the best camper, the best outdoorsman, and he just obsesses on beyond belief on this. And I think it would be cool to have a dad like that, to someone who thinks outside of the box and isn't so strict and isn't
Right.
I'm sure he does care about both Pete and Pete, but at the same time he's off in his own little world.
His name was Don Wrigley.
There you go.
The only problem I had with him is the fact that he almost seemed like one of those people that would have nothing to do with the kids' lives if he didn't have to. You know what I mean? Like you said.
He's kind of like an early live action. Oh, no, wait. No, that happened after 90. Yeah. He's kind of like a not so fat live action version of Homer Simpson, except he doesn't curse and he's not a bumbler.
Yeah. I mean, he just really has, he's just his own, he's in his own world. He's doing his own thing.
Yeah.
But, I'm glad you put him in instead of the mom.
That was a joke when I said that earlier.
My number 6 is actually our first repeat, and that's why I knew his last name, Gordon Robinson from Sesame Street.
Cool.
So we're thinking alike on that one. Yeah, for me, I'm just going to echo kind of what you said and repeat myself a little bit. He was the one human from Sesame Street that I just connected with immediately when I was a kid, and I always thought it would be cool to have him in my neighborhood or have him be one of the adults that I could interact with on a daily basis, whether it be at school or, wherever, at the grocery store, newspaper stand. I know those aren't around anymore hardly, but, he just seemed like a very cool person. He seemed like someone that you would respect before you even knew him. Like, he's just that type of guy that just seemed like his presence just demanded respect. But at the same time, he was very gentle, very, almost had like a soothing nature to him. And for the same reason you put him on your list, I put him at number 6. Halfway through, folks.
Yep.
We've had some interesting choices so far.
Yeah, my number 5 is the same as your number 7, Mr. Belding.
Okay.
I have to disagree. I will agree that he is slightly cheesy, but I don't think he's one of those ignorant people, or he might be a little bit slow-witted as far as catching up to what schemes Zach might have going or whatever, but I don't think he's the type kind of like Don Wrigley where he's just spaced out there.
Mm-hmm.
He's not that type.
Well, the other thing about him, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the other thing about him is the actor that was playing him. It wasn't just the character that cared about these kids. The actor.
It was the actor.
The actor very much, Haskins, really, I think that's his name, really cared about
Richard.
the actors, because if you're thinking about Saved by the Bell was a show, the kids were basically growing up on that show. And he's basically the main adult that's involved with this. And even in interviews he does today, he still knows what all of them are doing. You know, he will do anything for them. So that came out in his character as someone who genuinely cared about these kids both on screen and off screen.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Which, you know, and that's very cool to see an actor like that. Dennis Haskins, not Richard Haskins, Dennis Haskins.
Yes. But I've listened to a few interviews, and he impresses me every time I hear him speak. So, very cool guy. Number 5 for me, part of me wanted to put this guy higher, but I just couldn't. Number 5 for me is Mr. Rogers. Now, you can't really come up with a more perfect role model than Mr. Rogers. That goes without question. The only reason I didn't put him closer to number 1 on my list, and I would totally understand other people putting him higher than me, but the only reason I didn't put him a little bit higher is because it seems like the type of guy that would be a great dad up until a certain age. You know what I mean? Like, he'd do perfect for your younger years, but I'm not sure I would relate to him as well or deal with him as well once I hit my teenage years.
I'll come back.
But everything about him I think is cool. You know, he was definitely good with getting you in touch with your emotions and helping you deal with things. He wasn't going to try to, like, sugarcoat things, you know. Right. You would have been able to deal with a lot of different issues and problems. I like the fact that he was musical and creative, and, you know, he could explain things to you. Just an all-around great guy. He's very soothing and stuff like that. Something about him, though, I just can't quite put him up where I think he probably deserves to be a little bit higher. But for me, number 5, knowing that I'm putting him a little bit too low. So go ahead for your number 4.
Yes. My number 4,
Uh-oh.
Oh, God.
Don't scare me like that.
The only reason why this person's on my list is because...
if you say the guy in the rat suit from Beekman, I'm going to be upset.
No. The only reason why this person is on my list is because when I was watching this show as a kid, I had a huge crush on her. And it probably goes to the fact that when I was younger, I used to love older women for some strange reason. I used to have crushes on a whole bunch of older women at the time.
Is this turning into an episode of, like, Maury Povich or something?
No. But staying, even though we are explicit here at Geekhouse Radio Network, staying PG-13 and trying to keep it, you know, fairly, you know, non-creepy. This person, she did amazing with the kids that she taught. She cared very well for them. Number 4 for me is Miss Bliss.
Excellent choice. No, I 100% agree. Even more so than Mr. Belding. And just watching her interact with those kids, especially at a junior high age, she did a great job.
Yeah. And talk about hot for teachers.
Haley Mills. She wasn't a bad-looking girl, lady, woman.
No, she wasn't. So, what about you for number 4?
Where did I go from number 4? Oh, number 4 you're not going to know either, unfortunately. I went back to Hey Dude. There was a character named Lucy on Hey Dude who was the person at the ranch that actually knew how to ranch. She actually knew how to do stuff with the horses and riding and all these other things that I don't even know. But she is the one on that show that they would go to for advice. They didn't go to Mr. Ernst, even though he was kind of a caring person for her or for the kids. She was the one that was the most intelligent one. She was the one that was always handing out advice, and she genuinely looked like she could have been any one of their moms. I mean, it was just like this adopted, mom that inherited all these ranch kids, and she just seemed like someone that you'd be very comfortable going to with your problems, and that's a big category for me, and that's why a couple of them on my list have had that characteristic.
Yeah. You just love that damn show too much. That's all it is.
I do love that show.
My number 3 is actual parents. The darling parents from Clarissa Explains It All.
I thought you might throw them in there somewhere.
I think my number 2 is really going to throw you off. But anyway, staying with the darling parents.
Na 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 na. Sorry.
Stop it. I'm going to have that song stuck in my head the rest of the night.
Na. Sorry.
Yeah. Janet and what was the dad's name? God, off the top of my head, what was it? Come on, Grimlock, get researching. Dad on Clarissa.
Obviously, Mike has not researched his list very well. I'm just kidding.
Well, speaking of Grimlock, since I did just call him out, he mentions George Feeney in the chat. Dude, we are currently going off of the season 1 of the telecast, which is 90s kids live action shows. Boy Meets World may be covered in future seasons of telecast, but it's not currently in season 1.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how you're saying. I can see how a lot of people would put that kind of as a kids show, but we're talking about more like a kids,
yeah.
and that one would fall in with the sitcoms, and you'll see.
Yeah,
it later.
that would fall in with sitcoms, right? That's a later season. But no, the darling parents. Oh Jesus, I know the mother's name was Janet.
We'll get to it. Keep going. We'll get to it. Keep going.
But I really liked the way that they interacted, and I really liked, let's see, Marshall, that's what it was, Janet and Marshall Darling, damn it. I liked how Janet and Marshall interacted with each other, but also with their kids. They kind of, again, were those parents that didn't really interfere with their kids' lives. They had more it was almost like they had kids, and they let their kids grow up by themselves.
Yeah.
I know that there was several episodes where Clarissa had said, I feel like I'm raising my parents.
Yeah.
Because of just some of the stuff that they would do, and I think they would be really, really fun people to have as parents.
No, I agree. They would be. They didn't make my list. I can understand them being on the list though. I don't know why they didn't quite make my list. There's something about them that I couldn't get with, but I see what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
I just didn't put them on my list.
That's fine. What's your number 3?
My number 3, I guess, is kind of weird, but it's kind of the same as your number 10, I believe. Your number 10 was Bill Nye, right?
Yeah.
My number 3 is Mr. Wizard. Mr. Wizard was just cool for the exact same reasons that you're talking about with Bill Nye. First of all, you bring kids over for a sleepover. You're having kids over. They're going to be entertained, and you're going to be the cool house to go to because your dad does all these experiments and can do crazy shenanigans and whatnot. But at the same time, he was also the least, I guess what you want to say, the least nerdy out of all the science guys. He was almost like Mr. Rogers, where he was just this soothing guy that would like explain things and walk. He had a lot of same characteristics as Mr. Rogers, and I just think he would have been a cool guy. That's why I like the show, is because when you're watching that, he just kind of like brings you in, and you just feel completely at ease while he's explaining stuff. So he made it at number 3. So we've had a couple different science guys make our list. Yes. So why am I going to not like your number 2?
No, it's not. I never said you weren't going to like it. It's something that's going to throw you off, because I have to preface this and say that when I was asking you specifics of how to go about making the list, I had asked you if we could use any of the guests, the live-action guests that had appeared on The Muppet Show, because The Muppet Show, I believe, is episode 15 of the telecast, which is coming up. My number 2 is Christopher Reeve.
Interesting.
The reason why I pick him, first of all, he was Superman. One of the best role models ever. Second of all, Christopher Reeve, after Superman, he constantly did stuff with I can't even say it. He was constantly doing stuff for other people. He was constantly having charities. He was a huge philanthropist. He was one of those people that would go out of his way to help anybody. And it's more so of where he, for me, is a role model rather than an actual parental figure of, yeah, I would want him as my dad. While it would be cool to have Superman as my dad, it wouldn't really,
Yeah.
it wouldn't really fit. So I put Christopher Reeve in the role model category, and I remember him being on an episode of The Muppet Show, and I remember just like, oh, holy crap, it's Christopher Reeve.
You're using like an end around.
What?
No, it's fine.
What? I'm just saying you can't deny he is a great role model.
I'm not denying that at all.
All right.
Number 2 for me is one that you've already mentioned. That's why I said it was a good pick. I put Miss Bliss at number 2. So obviously we were both right on that. But Miss Bliss, like you said before, she just did a heck of a job with those kids, especially at the age that they were at, dealing with a young Zach Morris. Miss Bliss was cool. She was cool as heck. Not only she'd be the teacher that you wanted, she'd be like, name the position you wanted her there. Like whether it was your mom, whether it was your best friend's mom, whether it was a teacher, and you're so sick. So we're gonna just move right along.
You said it, not me. That's why I'm only laughing here. But no, I agree. And one of the reasons why I absolutely love Miss Bliss as a teacher is because she would, like I said before, she would actually go out of her way to teach the kids a lesson. I specifically remember watching an episode of Saved by the Bell about a month and a half ago on TBS. Like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. It was an episode where she was holding court. I don't know if you remember this one. Something went missing. Something happened. Whatever. I don't remember the details off the top of my head. And she was holding court, a mock court, like they do sometimes in school. And it turns out at the end of the episode that she was the culprit because she wanted to teach them a lesson in blaming people.
Oh, okay.
And, not always assuming that, Zach always did it or Screech did it by accident, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So Miss Bliss was a very excellent, teacher, parent, role model, whatever you want to call her.
I'm not right. No, and I think that's why she made it on both of our lists. All right, we need a drum roll here. So what is your number 1?
You should be able to guess by now.
I should?
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Rogers is my number 1.
I knew. It took me a second. Sorry.
Pretty much for everything that you said about him, just the fact that he was so soothing, just, as I said in episode 10, just the way that he interacted with the audience, you felt like you were sitting in his little apartment or his little house or whatever it was. You felt like you were in his house with him.
Yeah.
He welcomed the audience in so very well. Something nowadays shows don't do that well, I don't think. And, an excellent role model. As far as, I kind of mentioned earlier that I would get back to your point about maybe later in life, maybe you wouldn't want him as your father figure. I would kind of disagree with that because I think because his whole message on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was to be yourself and never let people change you and to do what you feel is correct. Mm-hmm. I think him as a father figure at like teen years and beyond, I think he would just support his children. I don't think.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Granted, I'm going off of the Fred Rogers we saw on television. I don't have any idea how he raised his kids in his personal life. Of course, he was never, ever one of those types of people nowadays that you see in the news.
Right.
He was no Britney Spears or, unfortunately, Michael Jackson. You know what I mean?
Right.
He wasn't that person, so I'm not going to say anything negative about him, but I'm just saying I don't know how he actually raised his children, but the way I would assume is that he would do exactly what he did on TV. He accepted people for who they are. And if he was my father figure, I would assume that as I grew up, he would support me no matter what I decided.
That's just what I was going to say. He would be that type of person that would support you no matter what you were going through, no matter what, a very tolerant person is what he came across to me.
Exactly.
No, excellent choice for number one. My number one, though, we're gonna completely go somewhere we haven't gone yet, both in the season and in this countdown. So I guess we'll have another drum roll here for my number one. My number one is actually Rick Marshall, who is the dad from Land of the Lost. Now,
I've never seen that show, so you're going to have to give a lesson on that.
Let me explain. Now, some of these people have been on my list because they would be entertaining and fun, like the entertaining house to go to with your friends, etc. Some of them were good, just straight up good role models. Some of them I put on there because they just had this genuine compassion and care for the young people that were involved, that were there. Rick Marshall is on my list because freaking he and his kids lived with dinosaurs and he protected them and they survived. Like, this is just straight up, forget all that other nonsense. He kept his kids alive. Like, they were transported into a land of like T-Rexes and stuff. And not knowing anything about the world or how to survive it, and he set up guidelines, he set up rules, he was like the excellent Boy Scout type guy that just knew how to do everything as far as like camping and food and shelter and stuff like that. And if you can save your kids in the land of the dinosaurs, that should give you some points as a pretty good dad, I would think. Now, I know it's not like your typical, he might not have some of those typical characteristics that you would be looking for that we've seen in so many of our people like Mr. Rogers and Miss Bliss, and, we could keep going on and on, but this guy, I mean, he saved his family. He saved and protected his family, so I gotta put him on there.
That works.
So that's why I put him at number one, and I do look forward to getting to that episode as well, and maybe I'll make you watch some Land of the Lost, although it is absolutely terrible to watch now. But
yeah, thank God I'm not going to be on that episode of the telecast.
We'll get to that in a future episode. So, just going to give some final thoughts and some wrap up here. I think the ones that we had duplicates, we had Mr. Rogers both on our list. We had Ms. Bliss and Mr. Belding, and Gordon Robinson from Sesame Street. So interesting that we had 4 crossovers, and I think we hit just about almost every part of our show. We had one from every block, if I'm not mistaken, because you got the Carmen Sandiego one in there for the game show block, and I got Sharon, Lois, and Bram in there from the musical variety show block. So I think we covered everything. What are your thoughts about some of these? The overall process in selecting your list, or just general thoughts?
I mean, honestly, like a few weeks ago when you and I and Tara had done the top lists for the 90.5 episode of Tooncast, I was sitting here racking my brain for stuff. But once, you had set out the guidelines for this, I was like, bam, 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 I know exactly who I want. I only had to look at the schedule on geekcastradio.com, the season 1 schedule. I only had to look at it twice.
Yeah.
Just to remember like the shows and where they, not really where they fell in the schedule, but just limiting myself to all of the just the season 1 schedule of telecast. And I think once we get to like a sitcom season, if we whenever we get to a sitcom season on telecast, we need to have this episode again.
Oh yeah, this is one that'll definitely come up. There's like obviously some of these supplemental episodes in season 1 will never be done again, and some of them might show up almost every season, and this parent one is definitely one that you'll see in the sitcom one. I do want to quickly bring up, I forgot to do this earlier, I wanted to bring up a couple of the people that missed my list. They got cut right at the end, just for the heck of bringing them up. The chief from Carmen Sandiego was one of the ones that got cut. I also had LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow get cut. And the guy that was in charge of the kids at the college years of Saved by the Bell. Mike, the RA.
I see. I don't. Mike the RA, I don't see him as a parental figure at all. I see him more of
a friend or
not even really a friend. I see him more of as do what the hell you're supposed to be told, or else I'll put you in a wrestling hall.
Yeah, well, the only reason I put him on there is it was just my first thought, because at first I was like, I'm not going to be able to come up with 10, so I was just writing down anybody I thought might be there. And just because he was in a position of, he was kind of the caretaker of the kids as the RA or whatever you want to call it, depending on what college you're going to. So I threw him on there. I just wanted to give him a shout out that I did at least think of him. But yeah, you're right. That's why he got the cut. He got the axe, because he was a little bit too much like the kids almost in some ways. Like a big kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is kind of, I liked coming up with this stuff, and I think we had a pretty good list. I definitely agree with you. Your number one is Mr. Rogers. Like I said, when I put him at number 5, that I knew I was not putting him as high as he should be.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can go wrong with him and Miss Bliss, and like I said, a guy that protects you from dinosaurs.
Plus, Superman.
That's true. So we had 2 almost guys that could protect you from danger. Pee Wee Herman, though, huh?
Well, like I said, now come on, you've had stuff on countdowns where you've cheated. So.
I know. It's not cheating. I'm just saying, I guarantee you someone questions our inclusion of him on the list.
Okay, well, I'll go back and rectify this. I will say being at Pee Wee's Playhouse. My being a kid type of choice.
So just for the house that you get with the parent.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that makes sense. In that sense, then I am cutting Rick Marshall from my countdown, because I do not want to live with the dinosaurs. If he's coming with his environment, I'm taking him off my list. I'm putting Mr. Rogers in, because that place seems pretty darn safe. And I'm not going to go to the Max either, because I guess that place burned down. So I can't wait till we get to that episode, because apparently I'm going to need to go on a tirade.
I need to hold my tongue, because I'll go on a whole rant about that show.
So stay tuned for a future episode of the telecast. Any last thoughts, Mike?
No, not really.
All right, then. I think we're ready to close this one out as a shorter supplemental. All the supplemental episodes will be kind of a little bit shorter than our regular episodes, as to be expected, unless we go off on some big tangents. So I'd like to thank Mike for helping me out with this supplemental episode, since I was scrambling for people at one point. And, of course, I'd like to thank all the listeners for tuning in to episode 10.5 of the telecast. I'm not going to go through all the feedback things, because you can hear that on every proper episode of the telecast. I'm just going to say, if you want to leave comments on our list, please go to the www.geekcastradio.com website and click on the telecast. You'll find the 10.5 post, and you can post your list. You can tell us where we were right, where we were wrong. We'd absolutely love some feedback there. You can call in the voicemail or leave feedback on iTunes too, but going to the website on this one would be real great for you. So I think that does it for now. We hope we succeeded in entertaining you, informing you, and most importantly, unleashing the geek in you on this special supplemental episode of the telecast. And we hope that you will tune in for our next episode, which will be coming out just in a couple days, when we start a new theme with Eureka's Castle. For now, I am your host, Optimus, solo with
TFG1 Mike.
Saying see you on the next episode in actually only about 2 days for another episode of the telecast.
Discover this.
Marshall, Will, and Holly.
Hocus pocus.
Best of times.